There's so much of it. What happens with it? Where does it go? And why is everybody here?
All my life it's been right here in the sugar industry. This was where I was born, and some of my fondest memories were right here in the cane field.
The weather is a farmer's master. It can be friend or threat. All he can do is react. But rain usually nurtures. It's harvest time around Lake Okeechobee. Harvest is the moment of truth, the payoff of man's effort and Mother Nature and their impact on the crop cycle. Work will be hard and unceasing. There are over 350,000 acres of sugar cane to be cut. The mills will run night and day. New fields must be plowed and the raw sugar shipped to market. But the major task, as always, will be coping with Mother Nature.
When I first came here, well, it was night, but I know day would come, and I didn't sleep that night, just waiting to see daylight. And my intention then was to do all that I could do to make it here in this country.
Most of the cane is cut by hand. Over 8,000 West Indians, mostly from Jamaica, take advantage of the opportunity each harvest. This cooperative program creates additional American jobs. Wages for cutting sugarcane are well above the federal minimum. Every year, the farmers try to recruit American labor, but there are few takers. The job is simply too demanding. Muscles ache, sweat burns the eyes, and untrained hands blister in minutes. But to watch a West Indian wield his knife is to see a century-old art.
It is hard work and nothing easy, and to cut, say, wagon and a half, 2 wagons per day, you have to work hard.
It's a rich, bountiful land, this Okeechobee Lake country, yielding something for almost everyone. But it wasn't always so fruitful. There was a time when it was too wild for even the hardiest settlers.
My great-grandfather came here to South Florida in 1911. And my grandfather followed him here 3 years later in 1914. And my great-grandmother came once or twice to South Florida, but she didn't like it. The mosquitoes and the rains just were to her disliking. She went back to Chicago and never came again.
The South Florida sugar industry history begins as much as anywhere at Cape Canaveral. Canaveral is Spanish for cane field. There can be little doubt that remnants of the ancient stock's cultivation lie beneath the Cape's launching pads. A tropical plant from the grass family, the Spanish brought sugarcane to Florida in the 1500s. The first mills were along the coastline. The ruins still stand. De Leon Springs, Port Orange, Homosassa Springs, New Smyrna. But South Florida's interior remained mostly a marshland. Then in 1850, the federal government, realizing the land's potential, deeded the Everglades to Florida. The state encouraged private individuals to begin early development. Dikes, canals, and drainage ditches were constructed. The wilderness was being transformed, opening the area to pioneer farmers. The area was found to have some of the richest soil in the world. It's called muck, an organic substance high in nitrogen. Diverse farming, including sugar, became possible. Even freezes were buffered by the warm lake. It was a land of opportunity, and many who came prospered. But in 1928, a hurricane changed the area once more. Monster winds swept killer waters out of the rain-swelled lake. Dikes that had been built couldn't contain the surge. Thousands died.
I was in North Dakota at the time of the 1928 hurricane that devastated the Belle Glade area. And in that hurricane, I lost my father and mother, three sisters, a brother, and a niece.
The nation was shocked. To prevent such catastrophes in the future, the Hoover administration constructed a levee around Lake Okeechobee to contain floodwaters. In the late 1940s, hurricane waters once again threatened life and property. Citizens of South Florida and the federal government joined together to improve existing canals and dikes. A new water management authority was created, and the boundaries of the Everglades agricultural area were defined.
Lake Okeechobee and its canals.
Art Kirstein explains the significance of the project.
It was to protect all of the Gold Coast from West Palm Beach down through Miami, so there would be no saltwater intrusion, so there would be no flooding of these cities and towns. But over the years, it has developed into a flood control irrigation system.
During the hurricane season, the system can lower the lake if needed. If the lake is low from a dry spell, rainwater caught by the surrounding area can be conserved, while canals and ditches can provide irrigation. The first step in sugarcane harvest is burning. The growers, like nature, use fire to clear. It rids the stalks of excess leaves, making them easier to cut and mill. Burning is regulated closely by the Division of Forestry. Firefighting equipment is kept nearby at all times. Farmers are permitted to burn only when weather and atmospheric conditions are favorable. State Ranger John Tamsberg explains.
The purpose of burning on good burning days is to allow the smoke to get up off the ground and dissipate into the atmosphere.
Fields are burned individually under the farmer's careful supervision. Done swiftly, the burning doesn't hurt the hardy stalks. White smoke means the fires are extinguishing.
The sugarcane mills just fascinated me around here. I've never seen a sugarcane truck before.
At the Lakeshore School in Belle Glade, new teacher Julie Adams asked her students to instruct her by making a sugar coloring book. She found that the Lake Okeechobee area is like any American farming community, and its schools are filled with children whose parents work the land.
The coloring book was started because I didn't know what was going on in the community. The main industry of the community is sugarcane. And since I didn't know anything about the sugarcane, I asked them what happens from start to finish.
Wayne Beardsley offers his experience on the subject. He's a supervisor for one of the largest growers.
This is a seed piece of sugarcane. It's simply a portion of the sugarcane stalk. At periodic intervals in the stalk, there is a definite joint, similar to a runner of grass. At each of these joints is a bud. From this bud will germinate, once the stalk is planted, a sprout. Over a period of 2 or 3 months, this sprout establishes its own root system, and from that new root system comes many sprouts which eventually look just like the fields around us. In a period of about 12 months, it'll be ready for harvest.
Today's modern sugar industry started in the late 20s when the first successful Everglades mill was built in Clewiston. Expansion was slow until the federal government increased sugar quotas for domestic producers in the 1960s. By the 1980s, there were over 130 growers and 7 mills around the lake. producing over 1 million tons of raw sugar a year and making Florida the #1 raw sugar producing state in the country. Yet most people know very little about sugar.
There is a good deal of public confusion as to what sugar is, what it does in the human body, and whether it is safe or not.
Dr. Fred Stair, Professor of Nutrition Emeritus and founder of Harvard's Department of Nutrition, a physician licensed to practice medicine.
The fact is that sucrose, which we commonly call table sugar, is the main sugar found in the sap of all land plants. And whether it is consumed in its natural state or whether it is consumed in its extracted and refined state, as we commonly find in the sugar bowl, it is still handled by the body in exactly the same way.
One item of interest is that when an individual exercises, muscles change, from using fatty acids as a prime energy source to the utilization of sugar. So sugar, blood sugar, regardless of dietary source, whether it is natural sucrose, refined sucrose, honey, or even starch, results in an energy source for an exercising individual.
Currently, there are many voices reaching the public ear who make accusations against sugar as a food. These accusations vary from ascribing overweight and obesity to sugar rather than to overeating, to much more serious charges, such as that sugar is an important cause of coronary heart disease. Because of public concern, the Food and Drug Administration in recent years had a group of independent scientists review the world's literature dealing with sugar. The conclusion was reached that other than one of the contributing factors to tooth decay, there is no evidence indicating that the average amount of sugar consumed by the American public in any way constitutes a health hazard. In conclusion, sugar is an important part of the diet, is a source of energy, is a safe food, it tastes good, and makes other foods taste good. And remember that eating is one of the pleasures of life.
The environment is a cane farmer's provider. He knows he must take care of it. Consequently, the latest equipment is used to measure air quality in the field, around the mills, and in the surrounding communities. Mill stacks are fitted with multi-million-dollar scrubbers, which eliminate particulates through the use of water sprays. Most of what comes out of the stacks is steam. The water in Lake Okeechobee, also tested regularly, is not only clean and a source of drinking water, but home to many thriving plants and animals.
I think Okeechobee is probably the best lake in the country to bass fish. It has a year-round population of big bass, anywhere from, say, 3 to 12 pounds. I've caught a couple like that. In fact, today I hope to catch another one.
Roland Martin is a world-recognized professional bass fisherman. He makes his home and a good part of his living on and around Lake Okeechobee.
Every day that I go out on Lake Okeechobee, it's a type of place that I have expectations, great expectation. I've seen bass even bigger than 12 pounds, and I have an expectation of possibly catching a world record here. This lake is incredible. It grows fish so rapidly that a 3 or 4 pound bass like that grows that way in probably 2 or 3 years. It's probably the best lake in the world for just a healthy population of largemouth bass, thousands of them, and they're sure fun to catch.
Okeechobee is Seminole for big water, the second largest freshwater lake wholly in the U.S. the Indians were well aware of what they had. Their descendants still live on the northwest shore. Portions of the cane fields are cut by mechanical harvesters, eerie in their pre-dawn trundle. The machines are more effective on upright cane, but so far, no machine exists which can distinguish, as a hand cutter can, the sweetest part of the cane from damaged or drooping stalks, and this can decrease efficiency at the mills. Getting the most from each stalk is at the heart of the sugarcane business. Cane grower Joe Marlin Hilliard explains the delicate task.
Exact point. I can show you here what cane looks like and why it's so important to get these tops out. As you can see, this cane, this is the top of cane, and this is what we want cut out of it. As you can see here, this is called the terminal bud. It's been frosted and it's dying and decaying. Well, as it dies and decays, the rot moves down the stalk. Well, this cane is deteriorating a certain degree as it goes down the stalk. This cane needs to be topped on down here. But once you get on down to this area, these lateral eyes are in good shape. So the Jamaican can come along here at any level and cut that off because he physically touches this cane.
Only the stalk portions containing sugar juice are sent to the mill. The remainder of the cane, like grass on a freshly cut lawn, will return another crop. Essentially, milling is a four-step process. Shredding and crushing extracts the juice. Heating and clarifying eliminates impurities. Evaporators remove most water, making the juice thick and syrupy. Finally, boiling in large dome-shaped vacuum pans produces the sugar crystals. Once an expert determines the right amount of crystallization has occurred, the juice, now a mixture of molasses and sugar crystals, flows into centrifugals. The high-speed whirling separates the two. The whole process is carefully monitored. Golden raw sugar remains, about 200 pounds for every ton of stalk that is processed. It makes food taste better, everything from salad dressing to ice cream. The raw sugar is conveyed to warehouses, where it is stored to await shipment to refineries. During harvest, the mills run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The sweet smell of sugar processing is constantly in the air. But raw sugar isn't the only product produced at the mills. Bagasse, the crushed fibers of sugarcane, and blackstrap molasses are the primary byproducts. The bagasse is mixed with molasses to produce cattle feed, adding bulk and fiber. It is also used as an industrial chemical called furfural. But the most important use of bagasse is for fuel to burn in the mills as a source of energy. With the exception of startup in November, the mills run almost entirely on bagasse. The crushed stalks are burned to produce turbine-driving steam. The mills are thus almost completely self-sufficient, and the fuel is a continually renewable resource. As long as cane is produced, bagasse will be available. One mill even produces a surplus of electricity and sells it to a South Florida power company. Growth and expansion is the dream of every farmer.
This mill grinds his first crop in 1961 and has been expanded since then.
Mill manager Alberto Recio explains.
They started grinding just 1,500 tons per day, and now after this final expansion that we made, we are about to complete this year. We are hoping to grind peaks of 10,000 tons per day.
In the late 1970s, a new sugar terminal was constructed at the port of Palm Beach. General Manager Fred Hill explains.
This facility was built by the various producers who pooled their funds to build something that none of them could do by themselves. It gave them the opportunity, once they did it, to have a facility that could ship up to 500,000 tons a year. We truck this sugar over from the mills in the Belglade-Clewiston area, and we'll generally receive about 2,000 tons of sugar a day at the terminal. Now, when we bring our barge in to load it, we'll load the sugar out at a rate of between 600 and 700 tons an hour. That means that we can load this barge, as we see down here right now, within 24 hours. That's a very quick turnaround for a piece of equipment, and it means that we can deliver sugar to any refiner on the East Coast or in the Gulf in less than 5 days. That's important to a refiner who's running out of raw material.
The Florida sugar marketing companies are basically competing against foreign producers. Many of these producers are actually governments that subsidize the industry, making it difficult for American producers to compete. Washington spokesman Horace Godfrey.
Stability of price is important for many reasons. Major reason being, in the case of sugar, is that we depend upon imported sugar for approximately half of the sugar that we use in the United States. We therefore have to keep our domestic producers' ability to produce, and they must have a price if they are to stay in business. If they go out of business, then we are solely dependent upon foreign suppliers, and we could wind up in a position similar to the oil situation, where a group of countries form an OPEC-like cartel and dictate to us not only the price, but the amount which we can import.
Without price stability, say the farmers, consumers get hurt. When sugar prices rise, the prices of products containing sugar rise, but the consumer prices don't fall when sugar prices fall. The industry probably has its greatest impact on the towns it has built. The people of the lake area depend on sugar for jobs, schools, recreation, and the small town way of life most of them prefer.
We have stores in all the agriculture areas around Lake Okeechobee.
Store owners and managers are well aware of the agricultural influence in their community.
Basically, in all the towns we're in, agriculture is the primary industry. All the other areas in those towns are pretty much dependent upon the agriculture.
To start with, remember we need the national IO model.
I'm David Mulkey, Department of Food and Resource Economics, University of Florida. I did an impact study designed to look at the economic impact of the sugar industry on the economy of South Florida. To do this, we think of the economy of South Florida as being divided into two parts. The basic part, those that produce products for sale outside the region and thereby attract new money into the region, and then the service part, those that provide services to the basic or exporting part of the economy. In this case, the sugar industry is clearly a basic industry in the South Florida economy. In each year, exports something around $334 million worth of sugar products. Each of these dollars in exports then generates additional spending as sugar processors and growers buy products and services in the local economy and pay income to their employees, which gets spent in the local economy.
Although the harvest season for the sugar industry is just a few short months, industry has a major impact on the area and the spendable income. I find in my business that the typical farm worker has adequate money to provide his family with a good home and also with a nice piece of transportation.
The total of all this economic activity for the South Florida sugar industry is something over $800 million, and this really doesn't consider the investment activity of the sugar industry, that is the purchase of new machinery and equipment. So when those are added in, we can conservatively say that the South Florida sugar industry is a billion-dollar industry.
Basically, we're farmers. Our whole business is farming.
end of the harvest season has always been a time for celebration. Around the lake, it's no different. Sugar is sweet, especially when piled high in the warehouses, destined for hungry buyers. The farmers and workers have toiled hard. Some have invested all they own, pitted themselves against nature's forces. Most have reaped the fruits. There's sugar on the tables, and for those who haven't, there's still the good country life and the promise of next year's harvest.